The scent of lemon disinfectant clung to Ariel's skin like armor as she moved silently through the gleaming boardroom. The skyscraper's 42nd floor sat high above the smog of South Central. Her bus ride had started an hour earlier. She had never been in a space so quiet and bright. Glass walls, chrome fixtures, floor-length windows, everything begged not to be touched. She wore her temp badge like a warning label. Ariel J. Facility Support. Do not engage. The morning meeting hadn't yet begun. Men and women in tailored suits filtered in, Bluetooth earpieces and designer bags in tow. None of them saw her. Not really. She was background a part of the room, like the lamp or the rug, as she wiped the smudges from the window overlooking the city. Their voices drifted in. She's sharp but aggressive, said one man, cool and clipped. Too urban for leadership, murmured another. Optics matter. We don't need more quotas, a woman added. Ariel didn't flinch. She'd heard worse. But the casual venom, dressed in polite tones, curled beneath her ribs. She tightened her grip on the cloth. There was a clatter behind her, sharp and sudden. A crystal tumbler had slipped from someone's hand. Landing in fractured pieces by the table's leg, she reacted before thinking. Stepping quickly, she crouched and gathered the larger shards, fingers trembling slightly. That's when it happened. She looked up, and he was staring at her. Marcus Vellum, the billionaire, tech mogul. The man whose name adorned 3 foundations, 2 satellites, and the company that owned the very building they stood in. He looked ... surprised, not angry, not amused. Just struck still as though recognizing something for the first time. You all right, he asked, voice low. It wasn't just the words, it was the silence that followed. Heads turned, brows raised. Even Ariel's breath caught, not because of the question, but because someone had finally seen her. I'm fine, she said, eyes averted. She stood and stepped back, placing the shards into the bin. No one else spoke. The meeting resumed as if nothing had happened. Vellum returned to his seat. Yet the room quickly forgot, but Ariel didn't, as she exited through the glass door. The sting of those earlier comments followed her like ghosts. They hadn't been about her, not directly, but they were about girls like her. Girls who walked into rooms and became air. She pressed the elevator button, heart beating faster than it should. She wasn't supposed to draw attention. She knew that she had rules. Be invisible. Stay small. Speak never. And yet, a billionaire had looked her in the eye. Down in the lobby, the concierge gave her a cursory nod. She passed through the turnstiles and out onto the heat-soaked sidewalk. Her thoughts. A tangle of confusion and anger and something else. She glanced once more at the tower of glass above her. She wasn't sure what had just happened, but it wasn't nothing. Marcus Vellum watched her disappear through the door. The sound of the glass shards, still faint in his mind. There had been something unsettling in her eyes, something unfiltered. No performance, no pretense. She hadn't expected to be seen, and when she was, she hadn't known what to do with it. Neither had he. Back in the boardroom, someone coughed. Well, said Caroline Dean, his sharp-eyed VP of strategy, that was different. A few chuckles followed. Not kind ones. She handled that better than some of our interns, another man joked. Marcus didn't laugh. His gaze lingered on the doorway long after Ariel had gone. The meeting continued talks of quarterly revenue, venture acquisitions, and some patent dispute overseas, but Marcus wasn't fully listening. His mind remained caught on the way she had moved. Careful, efficient, invisible, until the moment she wasn't. Downstairs, Alil stood in the service corridor, bracing herself. Her supervisor, Mr. Gaines, had a clipboard under one arm in irritation. Baked into his every word. You don't step into a boardroom during a client presentation, ever. I don't care if someone drops a gold bar. You call me, or wait until they're gone. She started. No, he cut in. You don't get to just anything. They don't need you getting in the way. His words were flat, impersonal. But the message underneath wasn't. They don't need you. You don't belong. Later, Ariel walked home, her shoes thin against cracked concrete. She didn't take the bus, not tonight. The air felt thick with things unspoken. Streetlights flickered above her, and every shadow stretched too long. She passed liquor stores, a shuttered hair salon, a mural of a black girl with her fist raised, high graffitied with a mustache. Home was still 12 blocks away, but her thoughts walked faster than her feet. Why had he looked at her like that? Not with pity, not quite curiosity either. It's almost recognition, but not the kind that comforts. She kept replaying it. The moment. The glass shattered. The pause. The way silence pooled around her afterward, like she had committed some act of rebellion. She hadn't said a word, but her silence had been too loud. Back at her apartment, she entered quietly. Her mom was still at the hospital. The couch sagged as she sat down, pulling her knees to her chest. She didn't cry. She didn't know what to feel yet, only that something had shifted. Slight, but real. And somewhere up there in the tower of glass, he was still thinking about her too. The next morning felt no different. Ariel entered the building through the service entrance, badge clipped tight, earbuds in but silent. She walked the same waxed hallways, past the same blinking lights of printers, the same indifferent nods from overnight staff. Everything felt as it should, until it didn't. "Miss Jones," voice said as she passed the elevator alcove. She turned. It was him, Marcus, Vellum standing alone. No entourage, no suit jacket. Just a dark turtleneck, and that unsettling. Calm.Arielle froze. "How did you know I asked," he said, with the kind of ease only rich men are allowed. "You handled that moment yesterday with more grace than half my board." She said nothing. "I'm hosting an informal session. Later today, on youth engagement, tech, social impact. You seem like someone who's got a perspective we're missing." Her lips parted slightly, confused. "I clean windows." "And you listened," he replied. "That's more than most of them do." Before she could speak, he handed her a small white card. Time, a floor, no name. Then he disappeared into the elevator. The moment he left, her stomach knotted. By noon, she was summoned to HR. The rep? A woman named Kirana named 2 Antonos for fictionite Ariel, like she'd trespassed into the CEO's thoughts. "Mr. Vellum invited you, but let's be clear, this is highly irregular. This isn't a job offer. You'll observe. Maybe answer a few questions if asked. Don't speak unless spoken to. And under no circumstances should you comment on policy." Ariel nodded slowly, but something in her had already started resisting. The room was small, nothing like the boardroom. 2 circular tables, minimalist design, open windows framing the city's sprawl. 10 people, all executives or advisors. Laptops, styluses, oat milk, lat. Then she sat silently for most of it, eyes lowered. A slideshow clicked past about Gen Z, market trends, digital empathy. Then Marcus asked, "What are we missing?" Everyone turned to Erlit. The pause. Stretched finally, she spoke, voice soft but razor sharp. "You keep saying you want to connect with people like me, but you don't even ask what matters to us. You design for what you think struggle looks like. It doesn't look like hashtags. It looks like my mom walking home in scrubs at 1 a.m. It looks like our Wi-Fi cutting out during class. If your tech doesn't start with dignity, then it's just another screen." The room stilled. One man smirked, clearly uncomfortable. A woman in a silk blouse gave a polite nod, her eyes calculating. Caroline Dean leaned forward. "Interesting. Thank you for your authenticity." Marcus said nothing, but his eyes didn't leave Ariel's face. Later, she stepped back into the elevator, heart racing. She caught her reflection in the mirrored panel. She had spoken, and they had flinched, not because she shouted, but because she hadn't. And, for the first time, the silence afterward didn't belong to them. It belonged to her. The door had barely clicked shut behind Ariel before the murmurs began. "She's articulate," one advisor said, half impressed, half surprised. "Unexpectedly sharp," added another, as if intelligence had arrived uninvited in a janitor's uniform. Caroline Dean didn't say much. She simply closed her laptop and waited for the room to settle. Her silence held authority. Marcus stood near the window, gazing out at the sprawl of the city. Damn. His expression unreadable. Caroline finally spoke. Marcus, I understand your interest in disruption, but this isn't that. You're blurring lines. He turned. She spoke more truth in 2 minutes than we've heard in a year. She's a cleaning contractor, Caroline said, each word chosen like a scalpel. This isn't mentorship. It's optics. You know what this looks like? Said nothing. In the hallway, 2 junior staffers whispered as Ariel passed. Is that the girl from the meeting? Yeah. Crazy, right? I didn't even know she worked here. She doesn't, the other said. Not really. Back home, Ariel's mother was pulling off her hospital shoes, her feet swollen, eyes half shut from the night shift. The kitchen light buzzed overhead. I heard you went to some meeting, she said without looking up. Ariel nodded. With the CEO, he asked. Her mother sighed deeply, sitting on the worn couch, rubbing her temples. Baby, that's not your world. Those people, they smile at you, then forget you exist. You walk into rooms like that, you walk on eggshells. I didn't do anything wrong. No, her mother said gently. But that don't mean you won't pay for it. Be smart. Stay quiet. Stay safe. Ariel looked away, her jaw tight. Was silence the price of survival, or just another kind of death? Later, lying awake, she scrolled through her phone. No mentions. No tags. Just a handful of company insiders now following her on LinkedIn. She recognized some names from the room. Her name had entered their inboxes, their meeting notes, their private Slacks. Not as a person. As a moment, and tomorrow, she'd walk those same halls again. A ghost everyone suddenly noticed but no one actually saw. 3 days passed. Ariel moved through the building like she always had, head down, gloves on, invisible, except now. The silence around her felt loaded, too deliberate. Whispers stopped when she passed. Eyes lingered just a second too long. Elevators that once closed without hesitation now held uncomfortable pauses. She tried to ignore it. Tried to pretend nothing had changed. Then came the press conference. Marcus stood on stage at a tech summit in San Francisco, flanked by global journalists and flashing logos. He was talking innovation, generational shifts, digital empathy. Then he paused. We recently had a young woman working in our own building offer. Single sentence that reshaped the way I think about accessibility. She reminded me that dignity isn't a product feature. It's the foundation. He didn't say her name, but he didn't need to. Within hours, social media was ablaze. Tech bloggers speculated. Someone leaked a blurry photo of Ariel from a staff directory. Reddit threads unraveled her identity. By nightfall, she was trending. The comments came fast. Scripted stunt. Diversity hire without the hire. So now janitors run tech companies? Woke theater? Ms. filled with messages, some supportive, most venomous back. At work, the shift had hardened. Co-workers who once nodded politely now looked through her. One man muttered CEO's pet under his breath as she passed. And then the banana sat atop her locker, yellow against the steel. Peeled just enough to be intentional, deliberate. Laughing, she stared at it for a long time, not because she was shocked, but because she wasn't. She picked it up, tossed it in the bin, and went straight to her cleaning station. Her hands were steady. Her heart wasn't. She didn't cry. Not yet. But later in the quiet supply closet, she let herself sit for a moment. Just sit. Not to escape. Not to break down. Just to feel the weight of it. Because visibility, she was learning, came at a cost. And right now, it felt like walking across a stage with a target on her back. That evening, at home, her mom cooked in silence. The TV hummed in the background, tuned to some game show. People at work treating you okay? She asked eventually, not looking up from the stove. Ariel hesitated. Am figuring it out? Her mother nodded slowly. Just remember, attention don't always mean opportunity. Sometimes it's just a spotlight so they can watch you burn. Ariel stared at the wall. She wasn't burning, but the heat was rising. The next morning, the banana peel was gone, but the message remained. Ariel stood by her locker, fingers gripping the handle a little too tightly. She scanned the hallway. Coworkers moving in clusters, laughter too loud, eyes darting and retreating. The same stale script of silent cruelty. She knew what they wanted: to wear her down, to see if she'd fold. Instead, she knocked. Her supervisor. Mr. Gaines looked up from his desk, clearly annoyed by her presence. "I need a minute," she said, voice even. He leaned back in his chair. "Something wrong?" She hesitated, then stepped inside. "There's been something left at my locker. People talking, staring. I'm not comfortable." He didn't even blink. "We've all been under pressure with the media buzz. Maybe don't draw more attention to yourself." I'm not saying you did anything. I'm saying sometimes it's better to let things pass." Her breath caught. Let it pass, like a bruise, like a joke that stings, like a banana. She left the office with her jaw clenched and her eyes burning. It was Ramon who noticed first. She was scrubbing the break room sink with too much force when he walked in. He didn't speak, just moved beside her and gently took the bottle from her hand. He didn't ask. He just said, "Don't let them see you bleed." She looked at him, surprised. He was maybe in his 60s, silver hair tied back in a loose ponytail, hands worn from decades of work. Ramon had always been quiet, efficient, background like she used to be. They sat outside on the maintenance steps that overlooked a narrow alley. No words at first, just the hum of vents and distant traffic. He finally spoke. 1994. I worked at a bank downtown. First in, last out. One day, a VP's car got keyed. They blamed me. No proof, no apology, just ... suspicion. He smiled sadly. I learned two things that day. One, racism doesn't always scream. Sometimes it whispers. Toof there. Already watching you, you might as well stand up straight. Ariel didn't say anything, but something in her chest loosened. Ramon didn't offer advice. He didn't promise justice. He simply stayed beside her, and that, somehow, was enough for now. The invitation came folded inside a sealed envelope. Hand-delivered by a suited assistant with nervous eyes, Ariel opened it alone in the locker. Room. The words were formal, but unmistakable. You are invited to participate in Vellum Innovation's Youth Equity Roundtable. Film segment, open discussion. Real voices at the bottom in black ink, Marcus's signature. She stared at the paper, unmoving. That night, she laid it on the table as her mother peeled carrots for stew. You gonna go? Her mom asked without looking up. Ariel didn't answer right away. I don't know what they want from me. They want your story, her mom said, but not the truth. They want the version that makes them feel generous. Ariel's hands tensed. I'm tired of being quiet. Her mother sighed, long and low, then say what needs saying. But say it knowing they'll try to twist it. Ariel nodded. The stew burned a little that night. No one said anything. The round table was set up in a high-rise event space, glass walls. White seating, cameras mounted on sleek tracks, a soft buzz filled the room. Tech influencers, investors, social impact directors, and a few hand-picked youth voices. Ariel was the only one without a stylist. Marcus greeted her with a nod. Not warmth, just recognition. You don't owe anyone a performance, he said quietly. She raised an eyebrow. You sure about that? He didn't answer. The session began. Introductions, icebreakers, buzzwords flying like confetti. Inclusion, access, community-led innovation. Then a moderator asked, how can tech reach underserved voices? No one looked at our lead, so she spoke. You keep using the word underserved, like we're some distant community in a brochure. I live 20 blocks from here. I've lived with power outages, no Wi-Fi, school computers from 2004, I've watched my mom ration insulin. My world isn't underserved. It's overlooked. Silence. The cameras didn't blink. I'm tired of seeing black and brown. Kids only featured in promo videos when it's donation season. I'm tired of apps claiming to empower us while collecting our data. You ask about innovation, but ignore the systems choking our chances before we ever sit at this table. She paused. Her voice didn't waver. You want real impact? Start with hiring us, training us, funding our ideas without filtering them through your comfort zones. Stop asking us to be exceptional just to be seen. A breath caught in someone's throat. Even Marcus looked momentarily unprepared. Ariel sat back, heart pounding. She hadn't rehearsed it. She hadn't needed to. It wasn't a speech. It was a wound that had learned how to speak. The moderator cleared his throat. Someone clapped awkwardly. A few others followed, unsure Carolyn Dean was in the back, arms crossed, lips tight. The cameras kept rolling. Afterward, Marcus approached her quietly. That was ... brave. Ariel met his gaze. It wasn't brave. It was overdue. She walked past him and toward the elevators, her reflection clear in the glass. Behind her, the room remained still. Ahead of her, something had cracked open. Not wide, but enough. The clip of Ariel's words, raw, unapologetic, unfiltered, hit the internet like lightning. First it was a whisper on X, then a burst on TikTok. Then it found its way into think pieces, duets, and reaction videos. If your tech doesn't start with dignity, became a trending quote. Ariel Jones had become a symbol, but symbols, he quickly learned, don't get to rest. The emails started polite, offers for interviews. It's internship invitations from companies that hadn't noticed her until the cameras rolled. Then came the darker ones. You should be grateful. Keep talking. See where it gets you. We know where your mom works. Someone posted her address on a subreddit. Photos of her high school yearbooks surfaced. A filtered image of her face became a meme. She deleted her social apps. But the damage leaked offline. Her mom was cornered at her job by a woman claiming Ariel had made white people feel unsafe. A brick was thrown through their apartment's front window note. No message, just glass and fear. At work. Her badge no longer scanned. She was summoned to HR, where Caroline Dean sat waiting, flanked by 2 legal reps. We've decided to dissolve your current contract due to internal restructuring, Carolyn said, voice coded in rehearsed neutrality. Ariel didn't speak. This isn't a termination, Carolyn continued. You recognize your recent ... visibility, so we're offering a separation package. 1 month severance, a small consulting stipend, and a non-disclosure agreement. She slid the folder across the table. No media, no interviews. You walk away protected and quiet. Ariel's fingers hovered above the folder. Her heart pounded like it had the first time she stood in that boardroom, small, lone, and exposed. She left the room without answering. That night, sleep was an enemy. She lay on the couch, staring at the cracked ceiling. Her mom was curled up in bed, pretending not to be afraid. The neighborhood buzzed outside, sirens, muffled music, the low hum of lives grinding forward. Ramon had texted her earlier, they'll buy your silence. Only you can decide what it's worth. She clutched the NDA in her hand like it was alive. Wire she could take the money, disappear, hide until the noise died down, or she could risk everything and speak louder. Her decision came not as a burst, but a quiet knowing. Like the slow turn of a key in a locked door, she folded the NDA in half and lit a match. The flames caught fast. Her mother stirred at the smell but didn't rise. Ariel sat, watching it burn, the last embers curling like smoke signals toward the ceiling. She hadn't come this far to be silent again by morning. The NDA was nothing but ash and resolve. Ariel sat at the kitchen table with her mother's phone, propped against a chipped coffee mug. No lighting crew, no script. Just truth, finally unshackled. She smoothed her hair back, took a breath, and pressed record. My name is Ariel Jones. I worked as a cleaner in the same building where people talk about changing the world. A few weeks ago, I said something. In a meeting, something that came from growing up where tech doesn't reach, where dignity isn't coded into design. She looked into the camera. No fear now, just clarity. I was offered silence, disguised as protection. But silence isn't safety. It's suffocation. She paused, voice steady. I'm not taking your money. I'm not taking your erasure. I'm not cleaning your rooms while you pretend I don't exist. Building something where we do exist. Loudly, brilliantly. She ended the video with a quiet nod, clicked stop, hit upload. The post detonated within hours. It was reposted by civil rights organizations, tech whistleblowers, and educators. Lawyers reached out offering support. A prominent nonprofit offered legal protection pro bono. A GoFundMe started by a stranger crossed $40,000 in 2 days. But the offer that caught headlines came from Marcus Vellum. He released a public statement praising her moral clarity and extended a personal mentorship, along with a grant to launch a youth-focused tech initiative. Called her a voice the industry must listen to. Ariel read it twice, then turned off her notifications. It wasn't about him. Not anymore. She spent the next 3 weeks in borrowed library rooms in a friend's spare apartment with Wi-Fi, working day and night on the foundation. Codaruda nonprofit to train and fund Black and brown youth in tech from under-resourced communities. Her first hires were a high school friend who could code in Python from memory, and Raymond's granddaughter who had been turned down by 3 internships because her GPA wasn't polished enough. She didn't build a boardroom. She built a space with no glass, walls, only long tables, laptops, and open doors. She still cleaned some nights to fund coffee and chairs, but not for anyone else. This time, she cleaned a space she owned. One night, after hours of structuring CodeRoot's launch deck, she stood by the window of the rented co-working space. Watching the skyline glow, she thought of the first meeting. Glass, the silence, the broken tumbler. She had been invisible. Now her voice had weight, and for the first time, the rooms she entered weren't someone else's. They were hers. The lobby looked the same. Same polished marble floors. Directory, same revolving doors that once spun her into anonymity. But this time, Ariel didn't wear a uniform. She wore a deep navy suit and a silver pin that read CodeRoot. A security guard waved her through, without checking her badge. She stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the 42nd floor. That floor, the last time she stood here, her hands had smelled of bleach and fear. Now, they held her own notes for a keynote address. The elevator chimed open. The boardroom was transformed. Rows of white chairs faced a sleek stage, backlit with blues and violets. Cameras were already rolling. Logos lined the screen behind the panel. Vellum Innovations, CodeRoot, FutureLab, Legessa. Ariel adjusted the mic clip to her collar. Across the room, she spotted Ramon, seated quietly in the 3rd row, wearing his best flannel and holding a notepad he wouldn't use. He nodded once when their eyes met steady, proud in the front row. Her mother sat with her purse in her lap, dressed in soft lavender, a color Ariel had never seen her wear before. She didn't smile. She just looked full, like she was holding back something too big for words. A moderator introduced Ariel last. She stepped up to the mic slowly, scanning the crowd. Good afternoon, she began. A year ago, I stood on this floor as someone no one listened to. Today I'm here as someone who now has a platform, not because I was given it, but because I refused to give it up. A ripple of murmurs. Phones up. Recording, she continued. Voice clear and calm. We build tech like it's neutral, but it's built by people with biases. We set standards based on access most people don't have. And then we act shocked when the same communities get left behind. It's not broken. It's designed that way. Applause. But this isn't about guilt or blame, she added. It's about changing what's possible, starting with who gets to be in the room. She paused. Every kid who's told they're too loud or too much, or not polished enough, you don't need to shrink to fit. You need spaces that stretch with you. Louder applause now. But she didn't let it distract. She ended simply, I came back to this building not to prove I belong, but to remind you that I always did. As the crowd rose in a standing ovation, Ariel stepped down. Backstage, she took a breath, her hands shaking slightly now that it was over. She slipped out the side door and into the hallway to ground herself. A janitor passed by, mop in hand. Earbuds in, another followed young, maybe 17, her curls tied up under a hairnet. She avoided eye contact, walking quickly. "Hey!" Ariel called softly. The girl froze, uncertain. Ariel offered a small smile. "You did a great job on those floors. Remember how much they matter." The girl blinked, then smiled back, shy but real. For the first time, Ariel saw herself reflected not in pity, not in praise, but in possibility. She turned toward the elevator. The doors opened. She stepped inside, no glass to clean, just ceilings to break.